my name is Caroline Olsen, and I haven't ever thought of myself as a musician. All my life, I've thought of myself as an athlete and a student. However, as an athlete and a student, I have used music to enhance my experiences. So, when I'm running, I use music to pace myself. I listen to the beat of the song, and when I listen to that beat, it helps me run in time with the music. So often I'll listen to a faster song, and with that faster song, it makes me push myself a little bit harder while I'm running. So if I'm listening to a good playlist, I could be running for half an hour, and it might only feel like 10 minutes. In team sports, before each game, there's a warm-up CD, and in that warm-up CD, there are songs to get the whole team pumped up. And not only does it get everyone pumped up, but it gets everyone synced up together, feeling the same, because we're all listening to the same external rhythm, and that affects how we feel on the inside. Whether we are talking to a person on our team or not, we are all feeling like we're on the same pace, like we're moving similarly. And it makes the whole team connect together as one unit, and it even connects the audience to the team. As a student, I use instrumental music to help myself focus. Because instrumental music is slower, often it helps me absorb more in the time I'm given. So it helps me study. So the odds are not every single one of you in this room considers yourself a musician either. Because when we think of a musician, we think of someone who's creating a rhythm and then sharing that rhythm with an audience. But whether we realize it or not, throughout the course of our days, we are creating rhythms, and just by living. When we walk, there's a rhythm to our movement, and usually we refer to that rhythm as our pace. And so with that pace, we adjust based on who we're with. And so if I'm walking with someone who is moving a little bit faster than me, I'll adjust my pace to keep up with them. And so we interact with people, and our movements show that, and that creates our rhythm. In our dialogue, there's an inherent rhythm to our communication. And that's because there's a cadence in the way we speak and in our language. Our languages universally have a rhythm to them. And so when we're talking to someone else, we share that rhythm, and there's a rhythm to conversation. And you can tell when there's a good rhythm to a conversation because there's a flow to the conversation. It feels good. If there's not rhythm to the conversation, you feel like it's an uncomfortable situation. You leave it feeling a little bit awkward. And so we interact with so many rhythms in our day, but when it comes down to it, we've had this rhythm literally every moment we've been alive, and that rhythm is our heartbeat. Our heartbeat, even in silence, gives our lives rhythm. And with that rhythm, it's almost as if it's our internal rhythm. And when we are creating and interacting with different rhythms, external rhythms, it's affecting our internal rhythm. And so if I'm walking faster, if I'm running, my heartbeat increases with that. If I am talking slowly with someone, or maybe meditating, your breathing is slower and your heartbeat decreases with that. So our internal rhythm is a reflection of our external rhythms that we interact with on a day-to-day basis. And so we interact and create so many rhythms throughout the course of our days, yet we all measure our time at the steady beat of a clock. So why is it that we all feel time differently? Why is it that some days feel so long and then others just seem to fly by? Well, that brings me to my question. How does music affect our perception of time? So to quote Walt Whitman, "That music always round me, unceasing, unbeginning, yet long untaught I did not hear." And so this poem in itself by Walt Whitman is a demonstration of the rhythm in our language. It's a mastery of the rhythm in our language. And through this poem, Walt Whitman comes to the conclusion that music is around us 24/7. He recognizes the music. And often we don't always do that. Well, one character who does recognize the rhythm and the music of every day is a fictional character in Body and Soul by Frank Conroy. So Claude is a 6-year-old boy growing up in a city, and he's a musical prodigy. And they can tell that he is inherently musical by the way he feels each moment. Every moment, he absorbs more. He feels the world in sounds and rhythms. And so when he's walking in the city, he's focusing on people who are focused on going to their next destination, not really looking around them. He focuses on each individual, and he listens to the sounds their steps make as they walk. So whether it's heels or dress shoes, he's listening to each rhythm, and then as a whole, he's listening to that rhythm. And so while we might just hear city noises, he hears a symphony. Claude realized that all these strangers were caught up in something together, that an unseen force had wiped out all differences between them and made them one. So this unseen force is rhythm. It's what connects us and sets aside all of our differences. And so we can see this in this journey of a musician, but we can also see it throughout history as a military tactic. In every military, there's a drummer. And what this drummer does is keep the pace of the group. And so while he plays the beat of the drum, everyone else is marching to the same rhythm. So all the soldiers are marching together. It unifies them. And so they could be feeling completely different things. They could be dreading the task ahead. They could have completely different backgrounds. They could just be feeling different emotions. But it doesn't matter because the rhythm of the drum keeps them moving together. In O Brother, Where Art Thou? In the opening scene, men or prisoners are working on the railroad, and they use the music to make their work go by faster. And so if you could listen carefully. All right, so if you notice, the rhythm of the song is longer. And so what they've done is they've created the work, or they've used what they're doing in their work and the rhythm of the hammer to kind of extend the length they feel in a second. And so their perception of each second is a little bit longer. And then it feels almost like time moves faster. So they have a tedious task at hand. They're working all day on the railroad in the burning heat, but they use this rhythm to connect them, make time go a little bit faster, and it boosts morale. In the documentary Music on the Brain, it explores that one of the reasons this is because when we listen to music, all of our brain, or most parts of it, are stimulated by the rhythm. And so a man with Parkinson's so severe that he can barely walk, when he hears music, all of a sudden he can dance flawlessly. A woman with Alzheimer's so severe that she can barely speak in complete sentences, when she hears music, she can sing. And so music captivates us so much in the present moment, so much of our mind in this present moment, that it actually has the power to take us back in time in the future. So this Thanksgiving, my grandma came over. And my grandma suffers from something called macular degeneration, which means that her eyesight is slowly deteriorating. And with that, some of her favorite hobbies she's unable to do. So she likes to cook, she likes to read, she likes to make tapestries. And since she was unable to help us cook during our Thanksgiving meal, my mom turned on a CD by the classical composer Chopin, and she drifted to the music. She went to the music, and she closed her eyes and relaxed. After our Thanksgiving meal, she talked with me and said that she was so happy that we played Chopin because it reminded her of her favorite movie that she went to go see when she was in Sweden with her best friend, and coincidentally, that movie is called A Song to Remember. And so she was able to share this memory with me so vividly and so clearly, and she wouldn't have been able to do that if the song hadn't reminded her of the movie. So that brings me to my next point. Because music helps tell stories like hers, music actually helps tell some of our favorite stories and our favorite films. And the way it does that is by linking together the story. And so that's called a leitmotif. That's when music is strategically used in a movie to link the movie together, to make it make sense. So the definition is a reoccurring short melodic phrase or theme strategically used in films to indicate someone, something, or a feeling that is present in the scene but not visible in the frame. So a classic example of this is Jaws. So none of us are watching that movie right now, but you all know what was happening. There was, when you hear that music, you know that a shark attack is going to happen because previously in the film, or maybe even when you saw the film before, you know what happens. So that song connects you to earlier parts of the film. And so it holds the story together. And so in our own lives, music can do the same thing. If we hear a song, it can take us back to our childhood. It can take us back to a particular feeling. Other movies that use this include 007, Indiana Jones, La La Land if you've seen it, Hunger Games. So all these movies use this, and it's something that we can use. And we can have certain songs that take us back. And for me, that song is You Are My Sunshine. So when I was a sophomore, I was feeling stressed and overwhelmed from school and my sports. And so I needed a non-competitive outlet. And I picked up the ukulele because it's simple enough. I figured I could learn it in my free time. And as I learned it, I kind of got more in touch with my own rhythm. It helped me to relax. And with that relaxation, I wanted to share that with my community. So I brought it to the local Boys and Girls Club. And in my junior year, I started teaching classes. I went to the classes and would sit with these kids, and it was incredible because I got to see them find their own rhythm. And this was a rhythm they had all along. All they needed was an instrument, and they turned it into music. And so on the day of the final performance, they got up on stage in front of 250 people and played You Are My Sunshine. And so not only in that moment where individually they were finding their own rhythm, they were sharing it with those on stage with them to create music. And then they were sharing that with the audience. And so it created one big moment that I was lucky enough to be a part of. And I thought it was so interesting that this did it for me, for them as well. They had the rhythm inside of them all along. All it took was an instrument for them to turn that into music. And so that brought me to another question I had, was that we think that we are the ones that create the music, but maybe in a sense music creates us. And maybe it doesn't take an instrument for us to turn that into music. Maybe it's in different things. Maybe it's playing a sport, going on a run, speaking. We can turn our rhythm into music. So this brings me to my final quote. It's one of my favorite quotes by Henry David Thoreau. If a man does not keep pace with his companions, perhaps it is because he hears a different drummer. Let him step to the music which he hears, however far, or measured or far away. So, as I said, I didn't consider myself a musician, but why shouldn't I? When it's the rhythm in music that connects me to others, that connects me to the past, and connects me to the present. So rather than letting a clock measure my life, I strive to make music of my life. Thank you.